things that sometimes we feel on the end of the month or the end of the quarter is this sort of bearishness in our bones, right? And I think a lot of traders said that today could be a down day, despite the PCE being rather a bullish, if not arguably dovish, 830 hot zone, right? But if you kind of wake up and say, Rag, I think end of month could be heavy. And there's a chance for that because profit taking is part of any kind of sell-off. And profit taking is selling, and selling can sometimes beget more selling. So let's talk about how we can narrow the field down to what could be actionable to the downside. So I'm looking at the month to date, but it's 3 p.m. If you were looking at this at 9:30 a.m. with me, you would have seen SMH and XLK near the top of this list. And actually the bottom looks pretty much the same. So if we're talking about profit taking, most of that will land on the top outperformers. Profit taking then goes down to the bottom of the list. Think of it as bargain hunting. That's really what sector rotation is. Can we take profit from things that have made us money? I don't want to buy at a higher high, says an institution, says a hedge fund, says someone who's managing money. I don't want to buy at higher highs. So where can I put that money to work after I take profit in the leading sectors or the leading stocks within those sectors, right? Then that money goes to the bargain hunting part of the list, which is the bottom. And you'll see here, XLE ticking up, XOP ticking up. And so when we look at the top to the bottom, now granted, anything in this list, even the middle, could benefit from a little bit of rotation, but most strong rotation happens from the top to the bottom. So that's the first place you can narrow it down to maybe 2 to 5 sectors and say this is where sector rotation could happen, and then these would be the stocks subjected to it. So if SMH is going to be a sector rotation candidate, then that's going to put something like NVIDIA, that's going to put SMH, that's going to put Taiwan Semi, AVGO, it's going to put Texas Instrument, Qualcomm, all in that group of maybe a little bit of profit taking. And then it will put a bunch of energy stocks here at the bottom, probably the beneficiary of that. But the most important thing to step back and remember is that rotation doesn't have to happen for very long. It could be today. It could be for just a couple of sessions. So that's where we want to step back and have our sanity check. And the sanity check is if we have a trend or if we have an index that has been largely moving higher, to what degree has it pulled back end of month or even end of quarter or even end of week? And ultimately, what we're looking at is all-time highs and then how many percent pullback and the price that would represent. So sitting here at 52.44, we're somewhere between a 2 and 3% pullback in the S&P. That's not a huge pullback. And that's from the current range high of 53.68, which is also the all-time high. So again, S&P punched up to an all-time high this month. And as a general rule, all-time highs are not bearish. But if we're seeing some profit taking, if we're seeing a little bit of a Fed's not going to cut in September letdown, perhaps, it makes sense that we're a little heavy. And we are. And we are. Let's do the same thing with the Nasdaq. Is this the time to get bearish? Note that the candle in the S&P futures touch the daily price movement range, and so is the Nasdaq. Now remember, 2 sectors in the Nas are also at the top of that profit-taking list, semiconductors and technology. So it goes to show that Nas is a little bit heavier, but it's not bearish per se. We still have an uptrend. We dipped into the daily price movement range, and even sitting here at 18,392, right? How much of a sell-off is that? It's a little bit more sizable than, say, the S&P at between 2 and 3%. You can see here it's a little bit more of a pullback. And then, we could say, oh, it makes sense because XLK is the number 1 weighted sector here. SMH is also very important. And these 2 sectors moving lower are going to negatively impact the Nasdaq futures. So that's ultimately what we end up with. And that's the sanity check. That's sector rotation and sanity check. That's exactly what we dealt with today. Now, does this mean the rest of June is doomed? Not at all. It will be very important that the Nasdaq holds not just the daily price movement range, but the beginning of the mean reversion, because this is a trend, and that XLK and SMH also find support and start moving higher. If those two things happen, well, then we're back to the overall trends that we've been seeing. So let's not presume that a pullback is a downtrend or that a pullback is even breaking the trend, and use some of these sanity checks to make sure we're staying kind of even keel about a move that's happening fairly dramatically on the end of the month. And this would apply to end of quarter as well. Hey traders, Raghee from Simpler Trading. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to leave a like and a comment below. And remember, subscribe and click the bell icon so you'll get notified of the next update. And when you're ready to join me for live trading, be sure to head on over to simplertrading.com. I'll see you in the next update.